AITA for using our wedding video to divorce my wife and sue her friend? My wife Megan had a friend named Kelsey. That is not her real name, but it fits her pretty well. She had known her since high school. They were college roommates for a semester before Kelsey transferred to another university. After their studies, they lived in different cities for a few years before reconnecting when Kelsey moved back to our area about 4 years ago. From the moment I met Kelsey, I noticed she was different from Megan's other friends. I do not really know how to explain it, but she is dramatic. She is always involved in some kind of crisis or drama. Every time we saw her, there was a story about someone who had wronged her or a horrible situation she was going through at work or in her personal life. Something about her made me uncomfortable, so I kept my interactions with Kelsey to a bare minimum. During group gatherings, I would say hello and remain polite, but I never engaged in long conversations with her. There was something about the way she exaggerated stories or sought attention that bothered me. Megan knew I did not particularly like Kelsey, but she never pushed me to get closer to her. About 7 months ago, Kelsey got engaged to a man named Brandon. Since Megan was her close friend, Kelsey chose her as the maid of honor. From that moment on, my wife's life seemed to revolve entirely around the wedding preparations. Kelsey would call Megan almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day, to talk about updates. The venue, the flowers, the dress, the guest list. Megan spent hours helping with everything from addressing invitations to organizing the bachelorette party. I understood that being a maid of honor involved responsibilities, but the amount of time and energy Kelsey demanded was excessive. There were a few incidents during the preparations that should have been red flags. Another friend of Megan, Natalie, mentioned to her that Kelsey had already caused problems in the past. Natalie told Megan that 5 years ago, Kelsey had accused a mutual acquaintance of spreading rumors about her. The accusation turned out to be completely false, but it still ruined the guy's reputation in their social circle before the truth came out. Another friend, Tyler, pulled Megan aside at a barbecue to tell her that Kelsey had taken credit for his ideas on a professional project they had collaborated on years ago. Megan seemed to completely brush off these stories. She said her friend was not capable of doing those kinds of things. The wedding took place at a hotel about 1 hour outside the city. It was a large event with over 150 guests. I attended as Megan's plus one, but I did not know many people. Megan was busy all day with her maid of honor duties. She helped Kelsey get ready in the bridal suite, made sure the other bridesmaids were organized, handled last-minute issues with the florist, and gave a speech during the reception. My day was very simple. I arrived at the hotel around 2 in the afternoon. I attended the ceremony, which lasted about 30 minutes. After the ceremony, there was a cocktail hour in the lobby where I chatted with a few people Megan had previously introduced me to. Then we went into the reception hall. I sat at a table with Megan and 5 other people, including 2 bridesmaids and their partners. After dinner, there were speeches and then dancing. I danced to a few songs with Megan, then spent most of the evening at our table talking with other guests. I saw Kelsey twice during the entire reception. The first time was during her first dance with Brandon, and I clapped like everyone else. The second time was during a group photo with all the bridesmaids and their partners. Megan called me over to join the picture, and I stood in the back row next to her while the photographer took several shots. That was the full extent of my interaction with Kelsey that day. The reception ended around midnight. Megan and I drove home and arrived around 1 in the morning. We were exhausted. Megan had to go back to the hotel the next morning to pick up some of Kelsey's belongings, so we went straight to bed. The following Monday, Megan went back to work. So did I. Everything seemed normal. Megan talked about the wedding and how beautiful it was. She showed me pictures guests posted on social media. Tuesday went the same way. We had dinner together and then watched a show we were following. Wednesday afternoon, I got home from work around 6 in the evening. Megan's car was already in the driveway, which was unusual because she normally gets home a little later than I do. When I walked into the house, I found her sitting at the kitchen table. Her face was pale, and she had been crying. Crumpled tissues were scattered across the table. I asked her what happened. She told me Kelsey had called her that afternoon. Kelsey assured Megan that I had made unwanted advances during the reception and made inappropriate comments. Kelsey also claimed I tried to get physically close and that she had to push me away. She claimed she did not want to ruin her wedding by causing a scene, so she stayed quiet. But now she felt obligated to tell Megan because she could not keep this secret from my wife. I clearly explained to her that all of this was obviously false and that I was never alone with Kelsey at any point during the wedding. I reminded her that I was either sitting at our table, dancing with her, or talking with other guests. I listed the only 2 times I had even seen Kelsey that day, but Megan had already made up her mind. She said Kelsey was crying on the phone and seemed genuinely upset. She added that Kelsey was not the kind of person to lie about something like this, despite the evidence showing she was a liar. I replied that she did not need to believe me, but rather the witnesses who could confirm where I was the entire evening. She started accusing me of trying to make Kelsey look like a liar and saying that manipulative people do that. Over the following days, we had several arguments about this. Every time I tried to explain the timeline of that evening, Megan countered with something Kelsey had told her. I suggested contacting the photographer to get all the wedding photos to see exactly where I was and when. Megan refused. She argued that just because something did not appear in a photo did not mean it had not happened. She added that I had probably found a moment when no one was looking. I offered to call some of the other guests sitting at our table to confirm that I had stayed there almost the entire night. Megan got angry because, according to her, I was trying to rally people to my side and make Kelsey look bad. 10 days later, someone knocked on our door in the evening. I opened it, and there was a police officer on the porch. He asked for me and explained he wanted to ask a few questions regarding a reported incident. Megan came to the door, and the officer asked if he could sit inside with us. We settled in the living room, and the policeman took out a notepad. He explained that a report had been filed claiming I had made unwanted advances toward a woman at a wedding. He specified that the report was made by Megan on Kelsey's behalf. I looked at Megan, but she avoided my gaze. The officer asked me to describe my activities during the wedding. I went through the whole day step by step. I explained that I was never alone with Kelsey and barely interacted with her. The officer wrote everything down. He asked if there were witnesses who could corroborate my story. I gave him the names of the people sitting at our table. The officer indicated he would continue investigating the report. He told me not to contact them directly, and then he left. After he left, I asked Megan why she filed a police report without even talking to me first. She replied that Kelsey was scared and did not want to file a complaint herself. So Megan did it for her since our state allows third-party reports. She assured me she did it because she believed Kelsey. That night, Megan packed a suitcase and announced she was going to stay with her parents for a while. She stated she could not stay in the house with me, and then she left, leaving me alone. The next morning, I called a lawyer. The initial consultation cost me $300. And the lawyer emphasized that I needed to take this matter very seriously because false accusations can have real consequences even when you are innocent. He advised me to gather all possible evidence, including photos, videos, and testimonies. Over the next 2 weeks, I barely heard from Megan. She sent a few messages about practical matters like bills, but ignored all my attempts to have a real conversation. I reached out to Natalie, as well as the other friend Kelsey had previously accused, and told them what had happened. The friend Kelsey had accused added that he would provide a testimony if needed. I also contacted the photographer and paid an extra fee to get absolutely all the photos and videos from the wedding. The photographer sent me a disc containing over 2,000 photos and about 4 hours of video. I reviewed everything, and the footage showed exactly what I had described. I was at my table for almost the entire evening during dinner. I danced with Megan and chatted with other guests. There was not a single frame where I was near Kelsey, except for the group photo where we were surrounded by a dozen people. 3 weeks after the wedding, my lawyer received a call from the police department. Kelsey had reached back out to clarify her statement. She explained she might have been mistaken about the identity of the person who approached her. She claimed there were several men at the wedding who looked like me and that it might have been one of them. The officer informed my lawyer that given the lack of evidence and the change in Kelsey's statement, they were going to close the case. Since the report had remained fairly private and had not caused me any tangible harm, we had no grounds to file a defamation suit or a claim for a false report, because as you read, Kelsey had supposedly just misinterpreted the situation and Megan thought she was doing the right thing. All of this in massive air quotes. After Kelsey clarified her statement to the police, I thought Megan would come home and we would have a talk. Megan called me 4 days after the case was closed. She said she wanted to see me in person to talk. I suggested our house, but she replied that she preferred a place where she could feel safe. She did not even apologize for what she had done to me. On the contrary, she was afraid of what I might do to her, which was absurd given that I had never been violent with her. I was not necessarily expecting an apology to continue our life together, but it was still the least she could do. And since Megan was dictating terms to talk to me, I told her I was not interested. From then on, she started texting me, saying she had thought a lot about everything that had happened. According to her, Kelsey must have been confused about what occurred at the wedding. But regardless of what really happened, she was disappointed by my reaction to the situation. I had to ask her what she meant by that because I had never managed to imagine what the right reaction to a false report would be, and I told her so sarcastically. She replied that I had become defensive instead of trying to understand why Kelsey might have felt uncomfortable. She added that I had turned this whole ordeal into an attempt to prove I was right instead of showing empathy, since Kelsey went through something difficult even if it was not with me. But getting defensive is a normal reaction for someone who is innocent and falsely accused, especially when his own wife files a police report against him without giving him a single chance to defend himself. She responded that she did what she thought was right at the time and that she did not regret it. She understood it had been hard for me, but according to her, Kelsey was suffering immensely too. She said Kelsey felt terrible about this mix-up and that I also needed to consider the impact it had on her. I then made it clear to her once and for all, so there would be absolutely no doubt left, that Kelsey's feelings mattered very little to me. Considering she had launched a false accusation that could have destroyed my life and already had a reputation as a liar. Megan called me insensitive, sexist, and a bad person because, in reality, nothing happened since the case got closed. But that was not the point. The real issue was what could have happened if the two of them had not decided to file a report without any evidence. How could she think one day it was me, and the next day it was not me anymore? At one point, Megan claimed I was displaying fragile masculinity because I was not able to handle the situation with more grace. Her suggestion was simply for me to let it go and not make a big deal out of this story. I got tired of talking to her and blocked her number. Does she really think I am being dramatic? Well, I am going to show her what drama is. I started looking for rental apartments online. I found a month-to-month lease on the other side of town that was available immediately. I signed the contract and moved out a week later. I took my clothes, my computer, a few kitchen items, and everything else I owned. I wanted to get all my belongings out of that house immediately. Megan must have gone back to our place because she had someone text me to ask what I was doing. I replied that I was moving out and that we were done. She called me from that number, but I did not answer. My lawyer started preparing the divorce papers, trying to keep things civil while ending the marriage. Yes, I got the usual flying monkeys asking me to reconsider my decision, saying I could not destroy a marriage over this, and that we needed to work on our problems. To all of them, I suggested we first file a false police report against them and then go grab a beer afterward. So far, no one has accepted my invitation. About 2 weeks after I moved out, I received a message from Natalie, Megan's friend who had warned her about Kelsey before the wedding. She said she needed to tell me something important and asked me to call her. She asked how I was doing, and I gave her a quick rundown of the separation and the new apartment. Then Natalie explained that she had something to show me. She pulled out her phone and opened her messages. She showed me a conversation between her and another woman named Courtney, who was also a bridesmaid at Kelsey's wedding. In the messages, Courtney said she felt bad for me and knew Kelsey had done these kinds of things before. Natalie scrolled up the conversation and showed me messages from a third woman named Rachel. Rachel explained that Kelsey had accused Rachel's ex-boyfriend of making advances at a party 4 years prior. That accusation had caused Rachel and her partner to break up before the truth came to light. Kelsey later confessed to Rachel that she made the whole thing up because she was jealous of their relationship. Natalie added that there was even more. She told me Courtney had dated a man named Kevin 3 years ago. Kelsey became friends with Courtney during that time, 6 months into their friendship. Kelsey assured Courtney that Kevin had tried to kiss her when Courtney was not around. Courtney confronted Kevin, and they had a huge fight. Kevin insisted he did nothing wrong. But Courtney believed Kelsey. Courtney and Kevin eventually broke up. A few months later, Kelsey admitted to Courtney that she exaggerated what happened simply because she felt Courtney was spending too much time with Kevin and not enough with her. I asked Natalie if Megan knew all these stories, and the truth is, yes. But just like in this situation, it seems she does not care that her friend is a top-tier liar. She also clarified that she did not know all the details before the wedding and only found out afterward when she started comparing stories with Courtney and Rachel. But before coming to talk to me, she went and told Megan everything the day before. Megan listened to everything, then went to the bathroom. When she came back, she had been crying, but she spoke very little. Megan explained that years ago, before meeting me, she was dating a man who cheated on her with one of her friends. Kelsey was the one who warned Megan about the infidelity. Megan said Kelsey supported her through the breakup and helped her rebuild herself. Natalie believes this experience forged a bond between Megan and Kelsey to the point where Megan became incapable of seeing Kelsey's flaws. However, Natalie and I think that could have been just another one of Kelsey's lies too. I do not know if Megan was crying because she finally realized the truth about her friend or because she felt stupid. But filing a report against her husband when he was trying to give her all the evidence before she made a decision is grounds enough for divorce. I am not just divorcing Megan, but also the permanent chaos her friend has been causing for years. Update 1. I believe it was about a week after my conversation with Natalie that my lawyer called me. He explained he was investigating Kelsey's past to build a case in the event we needed to file a defamation suit. I said earlier we would not do that. But after learning that several people knew about the report against me, we decided to sue. These people worked with me, so there was now tangible harm and a valid reason to take legal action. When you sue someone who has been sued before for the exact same type of behavior, your case becomes much stronger. Kelsey had been involved in 2 other incidents similar to mine over the last 5 years. In one case, a man married to Kelsey's former co-worker lost his job after Kelsey claimed he sent her inappropriate messages. The company investigated and found no proof of these messages. Kelsey then stated she had probably deleted them by accident. The man's reputation was ruined, and his marriage collapsed before Kelsey's story was revealed to be a lie. In another case, Kelsey accused a man of making unwanted advances toward her at a party. His girlfriend left him immediately. Months later, Kelsey recanted, saying she was confused. My lawyer pointed out that both men had taken legal action. Kelsey lost both cases. For that reason, and because this false accusation had real consequences on my reputation, my lawyer and I are now preparing an official lawsuit. 2 days after this call, Megan's parents reached out again. This time, it was her dad. He told me Megan was doing really badly and wanted to speak to me. I replied that I had nothing to say to her, but Megan was with them and took the phone. Megan started by explaining that Natalie had told her all about Kelsey's past. She added that she also did her own digging and spoke directly with Courtney and Rachel. She said she could not believe how blind she had been. She told me Kelsey showed up at her office 3 days prior. According to Megan, Kelsey walked into the building demanding to see her. The receptionist called Megan, who came down to the lobby. Kelsey was hysterical. She accused Megan of betraying her by listening to the lies of Natalie and the others. She claimed I was manipulating everyone and turning them all against her. Kelsey kept repeating that Megan was choosing someone untrustworthy over a friend who had always been there for her. Security had to escort Kelsey out of the building after she started screaming. Megan explained that after that incident at her office, she finally realized Kelsey was an extremely toxic person. She told me Kelsey had been sending her dozens of texts for days. Some begged Megan to stay friends. Others were full of anger and accusations. She acknowledged that she destroyed my trust and did not expect me to forgive her. She concluded by saying she finally understood why I left the house. When she finished, I hung up. I know it sounds brutal, but she should never have needed that much proof to believe me. She chose to put her friend, about whom there were already a ton of doubts, above her own husband. So I do not care about her late apologies. She is lucky the lie was started by Kelsey. because otherwise she would be facing serious legal trouble today alongside her friend or ex-friend. Kelsey is also in the process of getting her marriage annulled. Her husband Brandon contacted me to explain some things and provide me with evidence. He is going through his own difficult time right now as all the details about his wife start coming out. Someone I told about Kelsey's lost lawsuits must have told him. Brandon went snooping through Kelsey's personal belongings and her phone. Yes, he also suspects she might have been unfaithful, even though I have seen no proof of that so far. He found messages of Kelsey talking to other friends. Kelsey described plans to expose certain men in her social circle, the ones she considered arrogant or who did not give her enough attention. She mentioned me specifically. She wrote that I always seemed to judge her and she wanted to teach me a lesson. She added that accusing me would drive a wedge between Megan and me, and Megan would then need Kelsey more than ever. Brandon explained he was filing for an annulment since they had been married for less than the legal time limit allowing this procedure. I cannot trust my wife not to accuse me without evidence. And I also cannot trust her not to choose bad company. This divorce is final. Edit 1. I explained this in my previous posts. You cannot sue someone if there are no damages. Until people at my job found out about this false accusation, I do not think anyone knew. As soon as the information got out, I still do not know how my professional career was put at risk. I already noticed some people looking at me weirdly. That is why we are suing Kelsey now when we were not before. It is not that I do not like filing lawsuits. On the contrary, I cannot wait to take her to court until she never wants to make a false accusation again. We even hope my lawsuit sets an example, since this is already the third legal action against her for the exact same behavior. Edit 2. I cannot say much, not even explain how I got this information, but Megan might be the person who called my job. That is all I can say for now. I promise to make a new post soon when things are clearer. Alright. Wait a second. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Megan knew. Maybe not everything. Maybe not all the details. But she knew something was wrong with Kelsey long before all this happened. Natalie warned her. Tyler warned her. The signs were everywhere and she actively, consciously chose to look the other way every time. And that is the part that really hurts when you think about it, because it is easy to make Kelsey the villain here. She is an obvious villain. She is calculating, manipulative. She has a pattern of behavior. She literally wrote down her plans like some kind of chaos agenda. That is almost easy to digest. Bad people exist. Okay, fine. But Megan is the uncomfortable mirror because how many of us have had that friend? That person we knew was not right, but protected anyway because of the past, out of loyalty. Because they were there during a painful moment in our lives, and we decided that erased everything else they did wrong. That is exactly what Megan did with Kelsey. Kelsey helped her through a breakup years ago, and Megan essentially gave her a lifetime pass because of it. And here is the truly brutal truth. Brandon discovering those texts on Kelsey's phone. Kelsey showing up screaming at Megan's office. All of that, Megan needed that much proof. The word of her own husband alone meant nothing, and that should bother anyone reading this story, truly. Update 2. I hinted at something in the edit of my previous post. But now I want to make a big post with all the details. Well, not all of them, but the ones I know and can share right now. It was confirmed that Megan called my job, even though the exact reasons remain blurry. I have my own theories, but I will keep them for later. The company could not reveal to me who made the call for confidentiality reasons. But my lawyer requested a subpoena to get the records, and they finally handed them over. It is not that the company employees refused to cooperate, but without a court order. They could have been sued by Kelsey's and Megan's lawyer. In reality, it could have even hurt our case if the judge considered the evidence illegally obtained. With the subpoena, they were completely free and happy to cooperate. And yes, Megan did call. We even have the audio recording. You can hear her saying something like, "I am calling to report that one of your employees is the subject of a harassment report," before giving my full name. And this happened after Kelsey recanted her accusations and after the case was closed. But regardless, it produced exactly the effect Megan or Kelsey hoped for. Rumors spread throughout the office. Now, Megan is also being sued by my lawyer. Megan for ruining my reputation, and Kelsey for creating the lie that my hopefully very soon-to-be ex-wife used. I am also divorcing, but that is nothing new. What is new to all of you is that we are now seeking financial compensation because we are filing for an at-fault divorce to get damages. You probably know this type of divorce is often used for infidelity, but in reality, it is a much broader legal framework that can be invoked when the other person causes a major issue leading to the breakdown of the marriage, including infidelity. Anyway, that is how I understood my lawyer's explanation. Even if I am probably not transcribing it perfectly, I have not had any contact with Kelsey. But I have had some with Megan after she was informed about my lawsuit and the changes regarding the divorce. Up until that point, the divorce seemed like it was going to be simple and amicable. I would have liked it to end that way. But I cannot let it slide that Megan was talking to me about the pain Kelsey caused her while stabbing me in the back. I will probably have more news, but not for a while. I do not know what will end first, the lawsuit or the divorce. And honestly, I do not even know if I will come back to make another post. It will depend on the level of information I can share. Edit. I almost forgot my take on the reasons that pushed Megan to do this. After learning about my lawsuit, she called me from different numbers to scream at me, saying Kelsey was right, that I could not be trusted, and other things like that. Which makes me think she never really cut ties with Kelsey, that she knew everything, maybe even her friends' past lost lawsuits. And that this whole thing was just an excuse to divorce me because she did not seem upset by the decision at all. But after I refused to let the incident with Kelsey go, after I insulted her because she is a difficult person and that I call her Kelsey in real life too, Megan probably felt she had to defend her friend. Maybe she wanted to teach me a lesson. Either way, that is the only logic I can find for two women who seem to completely lack any. Maybe I am just wasting my time trying to understand their motivations. I would like to believe there is a logic behind all this. But when I see the evil that exists in this world, I tell myself there is not. I would love to hear your theories. Update 3. The divorce was finalized long before the trials. And I got compensation in the form of an unequal division of assets. Instead of splitting everything 50-50, we each kept what belonged to us. The place we lived in was a rental, so neither of us kept it. There was a reason I was so happy we initially went for an amicable divorce. But I should have called my ex-wife Kelsey number 1 instead of Megan. And her friend Kelsey number 2, because you cannot even imagine which of the two is crazier. Megan started harassing me when the divorce was almost finalized. I will not go into all the details. But it got so bad that I got a restraining order as a bonus with my divorce. Well, I will give one small example anyway. She sent me black roses along with a card that contained a very threatening message. She also sent a picture of my parents she had recently taken from their social media with their eyes crossed out and a note saying they were responsible for their son's actions. There were other little things, but nothing as major or disturbing as that. The lawsuit was also resolved after the harassment charges were added to make the case even more interesting. They both lost for different but fairly similar amounts. Megan could have lost less money, but with the harassment, she took the lead. Kelsey, on top of that and the annulment of her marriage, was also found guilty of multiple false police reports and sentenced to 6 months in prison. I am sorry I did not give you updates sooner regarding this legal procedure. But the prosecutor in charge of her case asked me not to talk too much about the matter before it was resolved. I assume he was mainly talking about the people in my personal life, but if I had told him about my online posts, the answer probably would have been a massive no. They reopened her file as soon as they saw my lawsuit and charged her with multiple false reports. I think that taught her a lesson way more than my civil suit did. I do not know what you think, but in my opinion, all of this represents a huge victory. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.